Hello and welcome to the Dashboard course by Trump Excel. I am Sumit Bansal, and in this video I'll show you what an Excel table is and how you can use it. Excel table is a powerful feature when you talk about dashboards because it makes it really easy to keep your data and refresh your data. So we'll see how Excel tables can be used, what are the structural references, and what are table slicers, which is a new feature in 2013. So let's get started. Here I have some dummy data set with sales rep name in first column, sales date in second column, region in third column, amount in fourth column, and customer ID in fifth column. Now you may think that this is already a table, but in terms of Excel this is not a table, this is in tabular format. Excel tables means a very different thing in Excel. If you want to convert this data range into a table, you can simply select this, go to insert, and here you have this option table, and the keyboard shortcut is Control T. As soon as I click on table, I have this create table dialog box, and here it asks me to confirm this data range. So here, since I selected this entire data, Excel has put in this data range as something that it needs to convert it into table. If your data has headers, then you should keep this checked, otherwise you can uncheck this. And as soon as I click on OK, you can see that it has converted this tabular data range into a table. Now you can see that some differences has come in, the color has changed, some look and feel has changed. I will talk about this, but if you convert a data into Excel table, some features are available which are not available if the data is there in the tabular format. Let me also show you one thing. Let me Control Z and go back. If you do not select this entire data range, if you only select one single cell and you press Control T, you can see that Excel has automatically guessed the current area for me. So it again says this should be the one that should be converted into a table. If you are doing this, you may not want to convert this entire thing into a table, or Excel may not identify this area correctly. So it's a good idea to just double check what this range says. If this is what you want to convert into a table, then OK, click OK. And also check if your table has headers, keep this checked, otherwise uncheck this and click OK. And as soon as you do this, you can see that a table has been created. Now, as I mentioned, there are some features that become available in Excel tables which are not available by default in your tabular data. So let's see what these features are. As soon as you convert your data into an Excel table, something changes. You can see that the formatting has changed. Now there are color bands in this data. You can see that there is now a downward pointing arrow at the top, at the right of each of these headers. You can see that there is this slight thing here, and if you hover your mouse over it, you would have these tilted double pointed arrows. So what this has done is it has converted this into an Excel table where you have this option to sort and filter each of these columns. So this filtering option is applied to all the columns automatically. You also have this option here so that you can drag and change the range of your Excel table. So for example, if I want to extend this to these two columns as well, I can change this and just leave this. As soon as I do this, you can see that now the same formatting has been applied to these two columns, and the column header gets a generic name. So if you already have a header name, then that remains, but if you do not have a header name, then Excel applies some generic names. So these generic names will be column 1, column 2, and if I extend it further, it will be column 3, column 4. So it applies generic names, and again it also has this drop down of filter and sorting. Let me Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Alright. Now if you want to add some data entry to this table, so for example, if I want to add another row here, I want to type my name, all I need to do is rather I point my mouse here, mouse cursor, and I start typing. And if I do this, say I type Sumit Bansal, and as soon as I hit enter, you can see that this has extended, and now this is a part of the table. So this is a good feature in table. You do not need to change these range again and again to tell Excel that this is the new data and now this should be a part of Excel. All you need to do is just type, and Excel would identify this as new data entry and put it as part of the Excel table. Similarly, if I Control Z and I'm here and I hit tab, you can see that instead of going to the right, it comes down, because this is an Excel table and it comes down and extends this range. Now I also have this row as part of my Excel table. Another very important feature is see what happens when I drag this down. So for example, if I've selected this table, see what is here. It says B, C, D, E and F. These are the column headers. If I drag this down and if I scroll down, you can see that it changes and becomes sales rep name, sales date, region, amount and customer ID. So what this does is you would always have these headers visible. If you're scrolling down, it would change these alphabets to the name of the column, so that you would always know that this is sales rep column, this is the sales date column, region, amount and customer ID. Another very amazing feature of Excel table is that if you apply any change to a column, Excel identifies that this change is needed in the entire column and it would propagate that for the entire column. So for example, suppose I'm extending this and I now say that I have a new target sale value. So I say sales target, and these sales targets are 10% higher than the current amount that I've sold. So here I would say select this and see what happens. As soon as I selected this, it says @amount in square brackets. So this is the way Excel refers to the data in a table. I will talk about this later in this video, but structured references is what this is called, and it is a way to refer a table into formulas, or if you're working somewhere in the Excel workbook and you need to refer to this table. And I say this should be multiplied by 1.1 because I need to increase the target by 10%. And as soon as I click enter, see what happens. As soon as I click enter, it is applied to this entire column, because Excel identifies that you would want to have this change for the entire column. This is a formula that is applied, and if it is applied for one, it should be applied for all. If you do not want it, again you can manually delete it and change it, but this is something that Excel does it all by itself just to make it easier for you. Now let me bring back the Excel to the original thing and delete this column. If you want to manually add a row in between or a column in between, you can do that by just going to that cell and right clicking, and here you have this option insert, and it says table column to the left or table row above. And in this case, say for example I just want to insert a row, I can simply click on it and you can see that the table has been extended and this remains here. Let me do something. Let me type my name and let me show you something. I would copy the date above, I would copy the region above by using the keyboard shortcut Control D. Let me say the sales is 500 and let me say the customer ID is 82. Now I have this formula here where I say sum, and I need to have the sum of all this amount that has been sold. So see what happens. As soon as I select this entire column, Excel has changed this reference. It becomes table 5 amount. Table 5 is the name of this table and amount is the name of the column. And now when I close this, now when I go to the end and close this and hit enter, it gives me the value. But see what happens when I change this. If I add something to it, so for example if I add 800, this change is made. Now let me add another entry and let me go here and again type something, and now when I hit enter, you can see that the formula is automatically updated. And this is one of the biggest feature in Excel that is really helpful in Excel tables, that this makes this entire range dynamic. You can have more entries here. Maybe you are sharing this sheet with a lot of people and people come in here, make their entries, and your number would change accordingly. Similarly, if you have created a chart using some data points, and if you add a data point using the Excel table, then the chart gets automatically updated. So this is a really powerful feature in Excel. Let me delete this and make it to the original thing. I can clear this formatting. I'm very finicky about formatting, so I can clear this by going to clear all. Now when you click on Excel table, you would see that something else also happens. Go to this tab feature, this tab list, and when you click outside the table, it is the tab list that you usually see. But when you click within the table, there is a new tab that appears, which is called the Table Tools Design tab. This is the contextual tab which appears only when you click on the table. Contextual tabs in Excel are only those tabs that would pertain to this particular feature. In this case, it would be Excel table. If you have a chart, then you would see that if you click on the chart, you would have a couple of contextual tabs. Similarly, in case of pivot table, you would have a couple of contextual tabs. Now, if I go to this tab, design, I have a range of options available for Excel table. Let me go through these one by one. The first part is properties. It has the Excel table name. As you saw, it was table 5. You can change the name here. You can maybe more descriptive in this. Maybe you can say sales data 2012 without any spaces. You can resize the table by clicking on this, or you can just drag this option. You can summarize this data with a pivot table. You can remove duplicates, as we saw. You can simply click on it, select the column. So for example, if I click on this table, I go to remove duplicates, it will ask me in which case you want to remove the duplicates. So for example, I would say I want to remove the duplicates in case of region. I only want unique regions, and as soon as I click OK, it remove everything except the unique regions. I would go Control Z to go back. You can convert this into a range. Now this is an Excel table, and you may not want this feature after you're done doing all the calculations or doing whatever you want to. You can convert this back into a tabular data form. So to do that, just click anywhere on the table and click on this option, convert to range, or you can right click, go to table and use this option, convert to range. As soon as you click on this option, Excel would ask you, do you want to convert the table to a normal range? You say yes, and you can see all these options are available. Now when you click, there is no contextual tab, there are no filters. The formatting however remains, and you can clear the formatting separately. Let me Control Z and go back. Now again, in the tools section, you have this option of inserting a slicer. I would talk about slicer later in this video, but this is only available in 2013. If you're using versions of 2010 and 2007, this option would not be available. This is a really important feature, and I will talk about this later in this video. You also have this option to manage the external table data. So for example, you can export this to a SharePoint list. I do not know how this works, because to be honest, I do not know work outside of Excel. You can refresh the data. If you have connected this table to a database, then you can refresh this. Coming to table styles options, here you can control how your table looks. If I go through these options one by one, this is header row. If I uncheck this, the header would go away. So if I click on this, you can see that the header has gone. If you want that back again, you can click on this. If you click on total row, as of now it is not checked, but if I check on total row, you can see that I have a total value here, and by default it would only give you the value for the last column, but you have this option here. You also have the option to identify what kind of summation do you want. Do you want the count value? Do you want the sum value? Since this is text, Excel was smart enough to identify that this is text, and it gave you count value only. But in case these are numbers, then it would also give you sum value. You can change this to whatever you want. So this is a summary of the table that you can have. I would uncheck this back. You can have banded rows. If you do not want it, uncheck it, and you can see all those color bands are gone. I prefer these, it looks good. You can have the first column, and as soon as you click on it, you can see that this has become bold. So you can use this option. You can make the last column bold. You can have banded columns. I do not know why would people use it, but if you click on this option, if you uncheck banded rows, you can see that now your columns are banded. I prefer banded rows. And you have this option, filter button. If you click on it, the filters would be gone. Otherwise your filters are by default available for your headers. If you do not like the formatting Excel has given to this table by default, you can also go to table styles and change this formatting. So for example, here as of now I have this blue formatting, and you can hover around these and see what is the color theme that suits your work. Or maybe you want to keep it very simple, go to a simple just border table, or you can be a bit fancy and choose colors that you want. But this is the styling option that you can use. If you do not like the styling options available by default, you can also go to new table styles and create your own style. If you want to copy or move this table, then you can simply just go Control C, go to the destination cell and paste this. Similarly, if you want to cut, copy, paste it, you can do this by Control X and Control V, and this would be moved. Again, similarly, as we saw in case of cells and ranges, you can also use Control keyboard shortcut. So you can just press the Control key, click on select this table, press the Control key and move it to copy it, or simply drag and drop to cut and paste it. Structured referencing is Excel's way to identify what data point do you want to refer in a table. So for example, if I just look at this simple table, it can have multiple combinations of data points. So for example, I may want to select everything including the headers. I may want to select this entire data set excluding the headers. I may want to select this first column, sales rep name, including the header and excluding the header. I may want to select these two columns. I may want to just select this data point. So if you look at this, there are so many permutation and combinations that using which you can select the data. So Excel has made it a bit easier for you, and you can select this data by using the name. So as soon as I created this table, Excel gave it a name, which is table 5. If you go to design tab, you would see that this is table 5. Excel has also given each of these columns a name by default, and the name is the name of the header. So now if I go to this cell and I click equal to, and if I say I want to select this entire data set, not the headers, only the data, and I select this data, you can see that it says table 5. It has selected this entire data. If I extend this table, if I add more rows to it, that would also be included in table 5 because it would be a part of this table. But what if I do not want to select only the data, I also want to select the headers? Then you can select this entire data set, and you can see that Excel says table 5, and within square brackets it says hash all, which means that everything has been selected. Similarly, you can only select this column by using this structured reference. Now you may think this is a bit complicated, why would I need to remember this entire thing? But you do not need to. You just need to understand how this works, and you can simply go and select this, and Excel would automatically put this reference for you. So in this case, you can see it is table 5, and within square brackets you have hash all comma sales rep name. So it says select all the data in this column. Similarly, if I select these two columns, it says table 5 hash all, select all the data in these two columns. An easier way to actually understand how this works is just type equal to and type the name, and as soon as you type the name, you can see that Excel prompts you the name of the table along with this icon which indicates table. Double click on it, and as soon as you double click on it, it will select this data. Now press square bracket, and as soon as you press square bracket, you have all these options available for structure referencing. There is nothing outside these options. You have this yellow icon with round brackets. These are the name of the columns. You can also select hash all, hash data, hash headers, hash totals, and at the rate. So this prompts you, if you only want to say select amount, then you click on it and close the bracket, and it would select all the data within amount. Now as I said, do not be worried about the way this is structured and how difficult it is. If you do not understand this, simply go and select the data point, and Excel would automatically put that reference, and then you can use that reference. One last thing that I want to show you in structured referencing is if you press equal to and go to this data point, only this data point, see what Excel does. It says table 5 at the rate amount, and at the rate means that this is only referring to this same cell data in the column amount. So if I go and I select this, then it would not be referred because this is E5, this is something else. But if I go and select this data, it says in the same row, which is H3, which is row number 3, in the same row, go to amount column and select the data point. So this is how you can select one single data point in table. As I mentioned earlier, slicers option for tables is not available in Excel 2010 or Excel 2007. So if you are using prior versions of Excel, you may want to skip this. But it is, however, available in pivot tables, and it works exactly the same. So if I click on this table, I go to design mode, design tab. Here I have this option to insert slicer, and as soon as I click on it, I have these options to insert a slicer for these columns. So I have the column names here. I can choose to select a slicer for each of these, but I don't think sales rep name or sales date makes sense, because let me show you what happens if I select sales rep name and I click OK. It gives me the name of all these reps. Now if I do not have repetitions, all I have is just a repetition of this column. So a slicer would make sense if you have a huge data set and you want to identify or filter this data based on some of the data points. So for example, let me control Z, let me go to design, insert slicer, and here I say I want to get a slicer for region. So I would be able to see how every region has performed, and I click OK. This gives me these 4 options: Africa, Asia, Europe, and US. And these are the regions, these are unique regions from this data. Now if I only select, say, Asia, it would give me all the data points for Asia. In essence, it has filtered this list just to show the data points for Asia. Similarly, if I can click on Europe, it can show me the data point for Europe. See that the color of the slicer changes so that you would know that currently Europe has been selected and currently Africa has been selected. There are a lot of options that you can get in slicers. If you right click on this and go to slicer settings, you have this slicer setting dialog box, and in this dialog box you can change the name of this. From a region you may want to say something else, maybe countries or continents or something else. You may want to not display the header, at all, so you would not have this at all. Let me control Z. I would right click and go to slicer settings again. You may want to show these items in ascending order or descending order, or you may want to hide data items with no data, or you may want to visually indicate it. These are a couple of options available. You also have the slicer tools options contextual tab here, and what this does is it would give you these options to style your slicers. For example, you do not like this blue slicer, or maybe it does not go well with the theme of your data or your dashboard, then you can change this slicer, and as you change this, you can see that this has changed. Again, you have a distinct color for the slicer that has been selected, but the overall theme changes. So you can use these options. You can also align this slicer. Maybe you can very nicely put it somewhere so that it looks like buttons. You can also align these slicers. You can change the width and height of these, so you can play around with the slicer. You can also maybe change the name here if you want. So slicer is a good option if you have a lot of data point and you want to summarize that data point based on unique data entries. In this case we had regions. You may want to do it by customer ID, although in this case it does not make sense because every customer has a unique ID. But if there are clusters, so for example here we had clusters of region, or maybe if you have clusters for months or quarters, then you can filter your data using slices. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Thank you and have a nice day.